Okay, in this video, I'm going to respond to Mrs. Rosario. And I personally know Mrs. Rosario because we do work together uh, with regard to Heart Known series and workshop and Bible study. So I know her path. I know her path intimately because we're talking about it all the time. And so I'm watching where God has taken her since we first started the work, how he's been building her, how he's been activating her. And I'm watching the exact pattern that I teach you, that he heals you as an individual. He has you walking in the authority he's given you, the responsibilities he's given you within your family. And I'm even hearing about family being healed alongside her, family hearing alongside her. And I've told you that God will do that. I've told you that he did it with me, that as I was healing, my daughter was healing, my family was healing. Even my son-in-law was affected by these things. So we were healing together in our relationships, but also alongside each other. God is doing something, and he was doing something in each of them as he was doing something in me. And so I am really blessed. I'm so grateful that I get to watch this and hear about it. And now I hear what he's doing as he's beginning to activate her. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is because one of the things that he does, and she and I had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago, that when he starts building you for a trust in his house to manage his church, he's going to crush you for it. He's going to build it in you, and he's going to crush you for it. And so we were kind of laughing. And also, I think I was laughing more than she was because she's just learning the process. It's not funny yet, But I mean, one of the things that we're talking about is, boy, we didn't have any idea when he first called us that this was how it was going to go. And so the reason I'm sharing that with you is because one of the things that she often longs for and tells me is exactly what I'm seeing in this message again tonight. And I'm going to show it to you. So I uploaded a video entitled Remaining in Him. And I talked about how I've been on, I started this fast that God has me doing because I was eating too much chili oil, and it's so random and doesn't seem like a sin, but it's a sin when you're overindulging in any particular thing. And there's a reason why God starts sending you reactions. It's not a diagnosis. It's a reaction for overindulging in a particular thing because he has not designed you to live for that thing, to set it up as an idol. The joys that you're supposed to be living for are the joys of the Lord, not the joys of the flesh. And that's what I was doing with the chili oil. And it's a dumb thing. I'm eating soup. It's not like I'm overindulging in carby, sugary, anything like that. But you know what? I was indulging. And it's those little things that are going to take me back to the flesh. It's those little things that are going to take me away from him, or I'm going to use it to distract myself. So he's just not having it with me. Here's what I want to tell. And so the thing I want to tell you about that is, this is how God builds me. This is how he's talking to me all the time. This is how he's moving me. He's constantly disciplining me with the shepherd's rod. He's constantly keeping me super disciplined and conformed to him, consecrated to him. He doesn't let me go back to the world. You get that? Like not for an inch. I'm eating chili oil. He told me 1 week, stop eating the chili oil. You're eating too much chili oil. The next week, he gave me hives. He gave me hives on my hip. He told me again, stop eating the chili oil. And I was like, he's not telling me to stop eating chili oil. And the hives spread to my stomach. And I was like, I can't take it anymore. Have you ever had hives? Hives are awful. They make you feel like you're going nuts. Surely this can't be from the chili oil. It's got to be something else that's coming out of my body. What's going on? I'm going through all this, body metaphor and everything else, right? And he's talking to me. He's talking to me about the chili oil, but I don't want to believe it's the chili oil. So he made it spread across my stomach. And I finally went so crazy with these hives that I just screamed out to him in bed, all right, tomorrow I'll go on a fast and I will drink broth. Because that's what he had been telling me to do, was to drink broth. Okay. Is he telling me a cure, a remedy, a medicine? No, that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is he wants me to drink broth because he wants me to get disciplined. He wants to give me something that my flesh is not enticed by, so that I can see that, you know what, I can actually sustain. My body isn't going to just fall apart if I'm not eating bowl after bowl of soup with chili oil. I wouldn't have eaten that many bowls of soup, quite frankly, if I didn't have the chili oil, because that's what I was digging on. But you see what happens? Then I start using it as an excuse, as a distraction. Then I start using it as, something that I'm sort of setting up, that I'm like living for. Oh, I want some of that chili oil again. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what our flesh does. It's not an addiction, but it can turn into a spirit if I keep going there. You know what I'm saying? And if you keep going there are a lot of things that can turn into what people call addiction. I mean, there's no shortage of 12-step programs for everything. When are they going to get to the underlying cause? The underlying cause is that you're not supposed to be indulging in anything of the flesh. You're supposed to be consecrated to God. You're supposed to be filled by Him. And when you're indulging, you're filled by something else. Let me say that another way. When your flesh is not disciplined, you are at risk of uncircumcising from the sinful flesh, because that's what your physical flesh wants. And you know what? God's not having it with me, because He's already activated me in the purpose for which He set me apart. I don't get to fall. So He is going to get me back on the path. And you see it in these videos. I tell you all the time, He does not let me step an inch this way or that. Things that you would not think that this is such a big deal that I'm eating chili oil. Well, it is to Him. And it's not about the chili oil. It's about me placing something as a distraction and setting it up as an idol. If you're having trouble separating from something, you might have set it up as an idol in your life. All right. So what she asked me is, when you sorted through eating. Oh, okay. So I forgot to tell you this. Okay. So that night, last night, I got really hungry. I had been drinking, the broth all day. And thankfully, I am canning so many, constantly canning. So I have a lot of broth on hand, so I can just pop a jar open. Good thing I bought up all those turkeys when they were on sale during the holidays. But I was drinking that broth, and I got really hungry last night, and I talked it through with God. And what I was saying in the video is that you got to be careful about, you need to talk it through with God. Don't be making decisions apart from Him. And in the past, what I would do is I would make a commitment, like I did when I was calling out to Him in my bed, going crazy with these hives, and saying, "Look, okay, I'll drink the broth. I'll drink the broth. I'll stop with the chili oil." But last night, it was very difficult. And you're going to find this when you're doing your fast. There are going to be certain things that are going to be very difficult for you. And you need to take note of them, because those are the tentacles. Those are the things that the tentacles of the flesh, of the sinful flesh, are just trying to get their hold on you again. And you need to just pry them off one after another, just kind of like if you're removing a tick from your dog. You're just going to have to take them out, take them off. The tentacles of the sinful flesh are going to continually try to get your physical flesh again. That's why you have to be disciplined in your physical flesh. That's why you have to engage in regular fasting. That's why you have to observe God's Sabbaths on Saturday. These are your checks and balances. This is what helps you to understand, am I in the right standing with God? And this is also the way that you will understand what He's taking you in deeper, because that's your covenant. He's going to keep taking you in deeper. He's going to keep crushing you. And as He's crushing you, He's building you. I know that it's painful, but He is building you. He is crushing your flesh to build up your heart and spirit. Crushing your flesh to build up your heart and spirit. Because where are you going to be justified? In your heart. And What is willing in your soul? What is it that's willing to receive God's ministry? Your spirit. So that's where he's building you up and he's crushing your flesh. Okay, so last night, what I have sometimes done in the past is justified. Well, I'm just going to have a little bit of this. I'm just going to have a little bit of this. I've been good, right? And so what I was saying in the video is that I didn't do that this time. God needs to be in everything. I cannot hide my face from him, and I cannot be engaging in something that I've not discussed with him. And he's really pressing that on me, and he's really walking me through something right now, because what he's showing me is that there are certain things that I will do, and I start to separate from him, and I don't even realize that I'm separating from him. I start to make these justifications, or I'm watching something a little longer than I should be when I know that I shouldn't. That it's like, it's not that I'm watching something bad, it's that I'm distracting myself. You know what I'm saying? So I'll do these are the things, and he's calling me in and telling me that I need to be taking him with me everywhere. And so that when I start to feel that prompting and that conviction, and then I need to be asking myself, am I bringing God with me? Is he here right now? Have I brought him with me? Am I doing this with him? Am I living by his spirit is another way of saying that. I need to be living by his spirit all the time. So he's bringing me in a layer deeper. And it's a little painful, to get hives. I don't love it. I hate it, as a matter of fact. It's like kind of disgusting. Like your skin is kind of scaly from it and bumpy, and you just feel like you're going nuts. It's not even just like the external itching. It's like inside, I think it's like you just feel so agitated and irritable. It's terrible. But this is how he builds me. He crushes me. And then he talks to me in it, while he's got me low. He starts talking to me. So here's the thing. So here's what Mrs. Rosario says. When you sorted through, and I know she's going to crack up at this because it's just funny. Like, I don't want to say be careful what you ask for, because, I'm not going to be careful or withhold from asking for more of God and more of how he wants to build me. I'm not going to be careful about that, but I am going to be aware that if I'm asking for that, and if I'm in him, that he's going to crush me to build me. Okay. And she and I literally just had this conversation 2 weeks ago. I think, maybe she's thinking that, there's a different story or something with how he's talking to me. Nope. I want you to know, Mrs. Rosario, that he's crushing me when he's talking to me. You want to hear from God. You want to hear more deeply. You want to hear more clearly. You have to understand that that's what he's going to do. Same thing with Paul. Remember, Paul said that. And so Paul prayed for his thorn to go away 3 times. And then God said, in your weakness, I'm made strong. This is the reason my power rests on you. And Paul's like, okay, all right, well, I'll keep it then. But just be aware, okay? Just be aware that you want to hear from God. This is what he does. It's not the things of the world. He's not doling it out. He's not making you comfortable. He is breaking you. So, Mrs. Rosario, by the way, you're doing it. You're doing the work. You already know what this is all about. All right, let me read her message. When you sorted through eating oatmeal, so I had oatmeal and I sorted it through with God. I didn't just make an excuse. I didn't just say, okay, well, I'm going to have this oatmeal. I deserve this little thing. I wasn't like going and returning to self to sort through my justification. I had a conversation with God. You know what I'm saying? Like I sorted this through with him. Lord, I'm very hungry right now. It's the first day of this fast. The first day is always difficult, and I'm realizing how undisciplined I've been in my eating because of how much I'm struggling with this right now. But I would like to have a bowl of oatmeal. Is this okay? Here's the commitment I'm making to you. So I'm having a dialogue with God versus me just saying, I deserve this. I'm going to go ahead and do this because he told me bring him into everything. Everything. What's worse? Me justifying it and just turning away from him and making a unilateral decision, or what he has taught me, which is you made a covenant with me. If there's going to be an adjustment to that covenant, you need to have a dialogue with me. You need to come to me and acknowledge it and not act like I don't see what you're doing. Did I hear from God in an auditory way? No, I made an agreement with him in my spirit with his spirit. Lord, I'm going to continue on with what I committed to you with you, but I need to have this little bit today. And then I'm going to continue on tomorrow with the fast. Okay, so she asks, when you sorted through eating the oatmeal, did it look more like inner child work or a direct conversation with him? Okay, so I just answered that. I didn't do any inner child work around it. I was hungry. I probably could have sat down and done some inner child work, but I honestly, I don't think that there was anything to really process in inner child work. I wasn't feeling like there was a compulsion to eat. That would have been different. I was just feeling hungry. And you got to sort this through with him. You have to sort this through in your own relationship. I wasn't feeling like I needed to distract myself, nothing like that. So if I was feeling more of the emotional stuff or the compulsion, then I probably would have been alerted to do the inner child work. So then she said, because I really want to get to a place, God bless her, you guys, she has the best heart. She has such a good heart. And she's been saying this since day one. I want to hear from God the way that you hear from God. I want that dialogue. I want that relationship. And I want you to know if that's what you want and that's what you're pursuing and that's what you're praying for, you're going to get it. You're going to get that relationship with him. And she is getting that relationship with him. So she says, because I really want to get to a place where I can bring things to him and have a dialogue with him. Please share anything you can on this aspect of relationship concerning dialogue with him. I just love her. Okay, so here's the irony in this. Shortly after, she sends me a message and she says, she listened to the video and she said, this was so good. I've struggled lately too. These little things that don't seem like sin to the world drag me away from him. It's so easy for me to justify. And then before I know it, I'm feeling off, like I have to fast and realign myself with him. Do you hear the irony here? Is that she's saying she wants to hear from him. You're hearing from him. If you're feeling off and you're aware of that, and you're aware that you need to realign yourself with him, you're hearing from him. Who do you think is telling you that? Who do you think is moving you by his spirit to feel those things? And then she goes on to say, I've struggled with drinking kombucha. By the way, the whole hoopla about kombucha, I don't think that stuff's good for you. My body never feels good drinking that. It's all sugar, you guys. I think it's a lie. What? The food industry lied to us? No way. All right. I've struggled with drinking kombucha and eating chips lately. He makes my throat irritated when I consume these things, so I have to cut them out. Are we not talking about the same thing, Mrs. Rosario? Your throat's itching or irritated, and my hives are itching and irritated. He's moving you. He is talking to you. Elihu said to Job, you say that God is not talking, but he's talking one way now and at another time, another way. And then he goes into all of these different ways that he talks. Do I not teach you that God is talking in your memories, your feelings, your thoughts, your whatever he's raising, your circumstances, your dreams, your body, your sensations, your illnesses, your afflictions? He's talking. And I'm reminded that Mrs. Rosario said to me at one time, there was a time, God was talking. There's times when he's speaking very, very clearly, right? Very directly, I should say, because God's always speaking clearly, but we're just not perceiving it. And that's exactly what Elihu said to Job. There's times when he's talking in a way that's very direct, okay? And you remember that the apostles were always saying this to occasionally would say, why do you speak to the people in parable? Lord, just speak directly. Speak plainly. That's what they said. And before Jesus, when Jesus came back after having been, was it after he'd been glorified? Okay, sorry, I had to look it up. John 16:25. We literally just read it the other day in one of the John studies. So he says to the apostles, this is before he's going to die, and he says, though I've been speaking figuratively, a time is coming when I will no longer use this kind of language, but will tell you plainly about my Father. In that day, you will ask in my name. I'm not saying that I will ask the Father on your behalf. No, the Father himself loves you because you've loved me and have believed that I came from God. I came from the Father and entered the world. Now I'm leaving the world and going back to the Father. Then Jesus' disciples said, now you are speaking clearly and without figures of speech. Now we can see that you know all things and that you do not even need to have anyone ask you questions. This makes us believe that you came from God. Okay, so the apostles would even get kind of like, this is so much work to try to understand what you're saying. Okay, remember what I'm saying right now. The apostles would even have to struggle a bit with what it was, the understanding of what Jesus was saying. And they said, why do you speak to the people in parables? Because though seeing they do not see, though hearing they do not hear, blessed are your eyes because they see. For you, the prophets longed to see what you see. So they were understanding things in a totally different way. But how was Jesus speaking? He was speaking in parable. The same way that he speaks through your experiences, your circumstances, your body, your dreams. He is speaking in all of these different ways. And also, he does speak to us directly, without figures of speech. But you have to understand that he's speaking in all of these different ways. And part of the reason he does this is so that you're always hinging on him. You're always craving him. And every single aspect of your life is aligned with him. Every aspect of your life. There's nothing in your life, not a feeling, not a thought, not a dream, memory, experience, circumstance. There is nothing in your life that you're not saying, God is in this. What's he doing? He's doing something with you. You get a sore throat from eating chips or an irritated throat from eating chips and drinking kombucha. He's doing something. You got to perceive it. And I know it's annoying. It's kind of, well, I don't want to say annoying because I feel like that's disrespectful to him, but he gets me. Okay. It is, it's work. It's work understanding. And it's also work, think about this. When you're going through that, when you're having that itchy throat or I'm having these hives, I'm talking to him because I'm like, why are you doing this to me? What did I do? Now I have to sit down. I got to make time to understand what he's doing and where have I stepped away. So what's happening in that process? I'm orienting my heart to him. I'm making time for him. I'm believing in his word. I'm demonstrating my faith. I'm living out my covenant. He doesn't just spoon feed me. So please don't misunderstand the way God talks. Now, I want to tell you how I learned this, because when he first called me to him, he was speaking very directly to me. He was he was also speaking in metaphor and this sort of thing, but he had to teach me how to listen to him in all these different ways. Otherwise, you know what happens? We take him for granted when he's just doling it out and speaking directly to us all the time. We start taking him for granted, and the rest of our soul is not orienting to him. There's a function in this. Your dreams, all right, if you have a dream, you're going to, even in your sleep, okay? I know this because this is what happens to me. I have to remember this dream because God is speaking. He's speaking in this dream. I am even interacting with him in the dream, like interacting in terms of my mind is going, what are you speaking, Lord? What are you speaking as I'm dreaming? Like, does that make sense to you? Surely you've had some sort of experience where you could understand that, right? Because at this point, every aspect of my soul is relating with him. That needs to happen with you. So yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. And yeah, it's going to take a minute for you to be able to understand what it is that he's speaking to you. But what I would say to you, Mrs. Rosario, is God's already speaking to you. Sit down and listen. Do your body metaphor work. Ask him. He's talking to you. He's calling you into discipline. I don't have some special secret about, fast forwarding to the no pain version. I teach you everything I know. I pour out my experience so that you can learn. And I want you to know you're doing it. You're doing it. You are hearing from him. You are now perceiving the ways in which he speaks. God speaks all the time. Listen, Job 33. But now, Job, listen to my words. Pay attention to everything I say. I'm about to open my mouth. My words are at the tip of my tongue. My words come from an upright heart. My lips sincerely speak what I know. The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Almighty gives me life. Answer me then if you can. Stand up and argue your case before me. I'm the same as you in God's sight. I too am a piece of clay. No fear of me should alarm you, nor should my hand be heavy on you. But you have said in my hearing, I heard the very words, I am pure, I have done no wrong. I'm clean and free from sin, yet God has found fault with me. He considers me his enemy. He fastens my feet in shackles. He keeps close watch on all my paths. But I tell you, in this you are not right. For God is greater than any mortal. Why do you complain to him that he responds to no one's words? For God does speak, now one way, now another. Do you hear this? Job has said that he's not speaking. How come you don't speak? I want to speak with my maker. But I tell you, in this you are not right. God is greater than any mortal. Why do you complain to him that he responds to no one's words? For God does speak, now one way, now another, though no one perceives it. Then he goes on to say the very things I say to you that people think I'm, being extra biblical. That was the word of the week, or the phrase of the week, that I got accused of. But, whatever. People will perish with their accusations unless they're brought to repentance. Now, let me show you where this is in the word. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds, he may speak in their ears and terrify them with warnings to turn them from wrongdoing and keep them from pride, to preserve them from the pit, their lives from perishing by the sword. Or someone may be chastened on a bed of pain with constant distress in their bones, so that their body finds food repulsive and their soul loathes the choicest meal. No, God wouldn't afflict us. Stop with this destructive teaching. That's what people have said to me. And it's in the word. It's in the word. Is God sovereign or not? Does God send these things or not? You can read it on your own. It's Job 33. God speaks in all of the ways that I've told you. He did build this message in me. He did build that testimony in me that I wrote in those 5,000 pages of a Soul Aligned and Heart Known series. What I'm saying to you is true. I went to doctors and therapists for almost 30 years, probably more than 30 years, to be honest, if you add up my childhood with my adulthood. And I went to doctors straight, 7 years straight, and got worse, never better, emotionally and physically, on the brink of death. My will was in place by the time I was 40. I was waiting to die. In fact, screaming, calling out to God to kill me. So how was I healed? Because no doctor healed me. No therapist cast out that spirit of fear that tormented and compelled me my entire life. How was I healed? Well, let me tell you something. I was this person who was chastened on a bed of pain with constant distress in my bones. Very literally, constant distress in my bones. Found food repulsive. I could not eat. I could eat one food. And even that, and it was beef. And even that, I was starting to have reactions to. Well, let me tell you why. Because this is exactly what I'm doing now with you. So that their their body finds food repulsive, and their soul loathes the choicest meal. Their flesh wastes away to nothing, and their bones, once hidden, now stick out. They draw near to the pit, and their life to the messengers of death. Yet if there is an angel at their side, a messenger, 1 out of 1,000, sent to tell them how to be upright, and he is gracious to that person and says to God, spare them from going down to the pit. I've found a ransom for them. Let their flesh be renewed like a child's. Let them be restored as in the days of their youth. Then that person can pray to God and find favor with him. Do you hear that? Then that person can pray to God and find favor with him. They will see God's face and shout for joy. What do I tell you about that? I mean, over and over, when I felt God's presence and I was hearing him talk to me, feeling him talking to me in the spirit, hearing him in the spirit, I was saying over and over, Lord, this is all I've ever wanted. I can do anything if I have you. Anything. I don't need any of the things I have placed before you. Just stay with me. I don't need any of those idols. I don't need a man. I don't need anything but you. Then that person will see God's face and shout for joy. He will restore them to full well-being, and they will go to others and say, I have sinned, I have perverted what is right, but I did not get what I deserve. God has delivered me from going down to the pit, and I shall live to enjoy the light of life. That's my story. That's what he did. And that's what he did before I even read this story, read this. And I've been crying ever since every time I read it. I just can't even believe that my story is right here, that it's clear as day what he did, that I get to testify that this is what he did, that he does this. He is the God of miracles. He can heal anything, and that he speaks in all these ways. And he's going to crush you. He's going to crush you for the message. And listen, every day he crushes me for the message that I bring to you. That is why he testifies to what I say. If you can hear, then stop saying you're worried you're not in him. You're in him now. Turn to him. If you can hear, don't wonder if you can understand these things. You're in him. Turn to him. He intends for you to understand. He loves you. He wants you to turn to him. And he has sent his prophets and his apostles and his witnesses and his son. And he has given you a word that he wants you to understand, and that he alone will make you understand. He has not given you a word that's some sort of riddle for you to figure out. He wants to reveal it to you by his spirit. He wants you to know the different ways that he talks and to orient all of these different aspects of your soul to him. So, Mrs. Rosario, you are hearing from him. You're not missing something. He does speak to you. I hear you talk about it. Just keep leaning into the crushing. When the word says, don't loathe his discipline, it means you turn into his discipline. You lean into it. You don't run from it. You don't distract from it. You lean into it. You recognize every single thing that he is doing. And I want you to know something as well. When you start doing this, when you learn to listen to your body, your dreams, your circumstances, when you start doing this, you are going to find that you are less afflicted. Wait, let me change that. You are less severely afflicted. And that once you learn the lesson, he relents. He sends the grief away because he's already promised you that he's not going to give you more grief than is necessary. Once you learn the lesson, he relents. So lean into it. When he's afflicting you, learn to I don't want to say get excited about it, because honestly, who gets excited over hives? It was terrible. But you know what? He relented. But you know what? I will say, I think that it's important that we're rejoicing. First of all, because our name is written in heaven. Because he's not moving the wicked to follow his laws and keep his decrees. They're not listening, and they're not, they're destined for his wrath. Rejoice that he loves you. Rejoice that he's building you, that he's teaching you something right now. I will say that those are things that I rejoice in. I feel extremely blessed. I didn't want to step away from the chili oil. I was digging on it. I love that chili oil. But you know what? I can't do it. Maybe at some point he's going to allow me to reintroduce it. He probably will. I don't think chili oil is bad in and of itself, but we'll see what he has to say, how he responds to me. But for now, I've been overusing it. And you know what? I feel a lot better not eating it. My hives have gone down. My inflammation has gone down. But most importantly, I feel disciplined. I feel peace. I feel restored in him. That's the most important thing. Okay, so pay attention when I say that healing is synonymous with salvation. Healing is synonymous with salvation. You cannot understand your covenant. You cannot understand how God is going to heal your soul and move you to heal from this curse, to obey his covenant, if you don't understand physical healing, if you don't understand how he's speaking into your body or calling you into discipline, if you don't understand those simple things that he established in the Old Testament, how are you going to understand the New? How are you going to understand the metaphors that he's used, the symbolism that he's used? How are you going to understand how your soul is healing in this process? That was the whole point of him establishing physical, tangible symbolism, was so that we could understand the spiritual. So if I just leave it at the physical and I just say, okay, well, I'm not going to eat chili oil and I'll just drink bone broth. Oh, this is what healed me. He's going to keep sending things again and again and again. And you know why? Because I'm not going to learn that I need to be disciplined. And so I'm going to go from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing. It's important that I perceive that he's disciplining me in the flesh. It's important that I understand that he is strengthening my spirit and cleaning up my heart. Do you see how that works together? Because it's critical that you see it, that you understand. So if you need it to be more clear, then pray about it. Pray that he will teach you and believe that he will teach you, and he will. Pay attention to where he's teaching you, because he just might teach you through a circumstance. God's speaking all the time. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.